This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. It is 7 p.m. so we are going to call this meeting to order. At this time I do understand we do have a few additions to the agenda. For council's benefit, I would like to add Ukrainian flag to the agenda and would ask what other additions we have here this evening.
I have one,
Yes,
Your Worship.
you.
Okay, I think we'll go with Councillor McIver first and then we'll go over to Deputy Mayor Aucoin.
Recommendation from the Waterfront Advisory Committee.
Okay, sure. Recommendation from the Waterfront Advisory. Okay. Any other additions, Councillor McIver?
No, Your Worship, that's fine.
Thank you. Over to you, Deputy Mayor Aucoin, for your addition.
Post-COVID restrictions.
Post-COVID restrictions. Is that in terms of town policies or in general?
Yeah, well, town policies, basically.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other follow-up additions, Deputy Mayor?
That's good, thank you.
Okay, any other additions this evening, or Terry, was there any other items that we are required for addition?
Yeah, we were going to add public meetings in virtual versus in-person meetings.
Oh, okay. I guess just a point of clarity for Deputy Mayor Aucoin, was that part of what your addition was going to entail?
That would fall under the same thing, yes.
Oh, okay. So Terry, I think it'll be covered under Deputy Mayor Aucoin's addition.
Sounds good. Okay.
Perfect. Any others besides that? Okay. All right. So it looks like 3 additions: a Ukrainian flag, recommendation coming from Waterfront Advisory Committee, as well as post-COVID restrictions regarding town policies. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the 3 additions.
So motion move.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Aucoin and seconded by Councillor McCrory, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship. Yep.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded. Okay, the meeting is the agenda is approved with the 3 additions. So we will be moving on to gallery presentations. Just wanted to relay for council's benefit that the agenda that had been circulated prior to the weekend did have a presentation from Straight Richmond Housing Matters Coalition. They will defer their presentation to another evening. I just want to let council know. And we do have 1 remaining gallery presentation. So with that, I would invite Megan Doucette to do her presentation with regard to Bicycle Nova Scotia. Over to you, Megan. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name is Megan Doucette, and I'm the Active Transportation Planner at Bicycle Nova Scotia. And we have been partnered with Port Hawkesbury for the last couple of years on something called the Blue Route Hubs project. Previously, one of my colleagues had presented several months ago, and I'm following up with kind of the final stage in the project. So we can move to the next slide, Terry. So we are tasked with co-managing with the province something called the Blue Route. And so the vision of this is to connect the whole province through a network of cycling infrastructure. And so we can move to the next slide. And so we are working with the towns along that larger cycling network to develop plans for infrastructure throughout the town so that people coming from farther away can connect easily into the downtown and businesses that they would want to reach, and also to create a network of safe, healthy, sustainable travel options for residents so that people can really get around using cycling and walking and rolling as a mode of transportation and feel comfortable and able to do that to enhance mobility options. So we started Oh, that's great. And so we use an all ages and abilities kind of framework in our work. And so that means that new active transportation infrastructure should be comfortable for people of all ages and people with disabilities, and really safe for vulnerable road users. And so that includes people walking, rolling, using mobility devices, and cycling. And so that's really the lens that we have used for the project. During the earlier phases of the project, we developed in consultation with the community this network. And so there are 3 key routes shown in purple, red, and green. And the red route number 1 is the route that we've developed a concept design for that I will be talking about today. And this was kind of prioritized through public consultation in the community as the main priority. So I'm going to talk about Granville Street and Sydney Road together because we have selected a similar concept design for both of those streets. And so this is the existing conditions on Granville Street. There are a lane in each direction for vehicle traffic, and there is a sidewalk on one side of the road. And similar on Sydney Road, but for some sections, there are sidewalks on both sides. So the concept design that I'm showing sort of applies to both, but on Sydney Road, we recommend continuing that sidewalk on the opposite side throughout the whole street. So the concept design here is a multi-use pathway, and I know that they are very popular in Port Hawkesbury since some have already been implemented and well used and loved in the community. So we're continuing on with that design, and we're proposing that it's 3.5 meters wide throughout Granville and Sydney, which is a little bit above the minimum standard, and that just gives some added comfort because there can be some conflict between people walking and cycling sometimes. So having that extra width just gives a little bit more of a feeling of safety, especially for the people who are walking or going a little bit slower. And this is just another view of kind of what the street will look like when that is implemented. And so I have these overhead views of the road, and I'm going to flow through these a little bit quickly just in the name of time. But this is kind of where the infrastructure would start. We're proposing that this slip lane off of Reeve Street onto Granville gets closed off to vehicles and used as an active transportation lane. And we're thinking in the future, hopefully there can be a crossing there from the existing multi-use path on the other side of Reeve Street. However, with the traffic speeds as they are now in the design, the traffic is very fast. So another option could be to add a crossing at the NSCC and point people down Embry Island Road to connect in with Granville Street. And then the town has been working on a park plan for this area near McLaughlin and Prince. So we've shown the multi-use path kind of going around that park area. And we've suggested some potential realignment for the intersection of McLaughlin and Prince. And I know the town is kind of thinking about how those can realign as well with the access point into the park for the parking lot. So this may not kind of end up exactly as shown, but we think that kind of tightening up the turning there and adding the stop sign will make it, on both of those streets, will make it a little bit safer for people walking and cycling. And then to connect with the rest of the multi-use path, which will be on the opposite side of the street, we're proposing a crossing here just kind of at the end of the park. And then much of the intersections throughout Granville Street look pretty similar. We're proposing bump outs at them where possible. And that shortens the crossing distance for people using the multi-use pathway, decreasing their exposure to kind of motor vehicles crossing. And we can kind of flow through these. It's pretty much the same sort of concept through Granville Street. until we get to the intersection with Sydney Road. And so again, on this intersection, we're proposing to kind of tighten up the corners and add some stop signs here. And this will help to slow vehicles down and increase that level of safety for people on foot and on bike. And then the multi-use pathway will continue up Sydney Road. We're also proposing curb bump outs on the cross streets with Sydney, again, just to increase the safety for people crossing on foot or by bike. And there on Queen Street, we're proposing a bit of a realignment so that the crossing is a little bit more straightforward for people and vehicles, and to kind of improve the sight lines and things like that, and safety as well. And yeah, we can flow up to the Reeve Street intersection here. There are kind of plans and visions in the works for the multi-use pathway that exists further down on Reeve Street to continue on. And that is part of the one of the other routes in the Blue Route Hubs project plan. So I've shown that here. And so this multi-use pathway on Sydney Road would connect to the multi-use pathway on Reeve Street. And then that would allow people to continue up onto Old Sydney Road. And these are the existing conditions there. So it's a quieter street compared to Granville and the other part of Sydney. And it's fairly narrow with gravel shoulders currently. And for the longer term, we're proposing a protected multi-use shoulder area. So this could be used by people walking, rolling, and cycling. And it would provide some of that physical protection that makes people feel more comfortable to use their bike and walk. But in the meantime, we think a short-term implementation could include sharrows, which is like a painted bike symbol with arrows on the pavement. And that kind of signalizes a shared use space for people cycling and driving, as well as signage that would point people along the route to let them know that it is part of the active transportation network. And we think that that is appropriate for Old Sydney Road because of the low volume of traffic. On higher volume roads, that physical protection is really essential. But if there are lower volumes of traffic that are going slower speeds, it can be appropriate for those different vehicle types to mix, including people cycling. And it's, of course, cheaper to do some paint than some bigger projects to start out with. And then the pathway that connects Old Sydney Road onto Pinecrest Drive is great connection currently. There definitely could use some repaving there. So the current pathway is 2.6 meters, which is a little bit below the recommended minimum standard of 3 meters wide for a multi-use pathway. And we are proposing to widen that and repave it. And I know that in conversations with town staff that there are some kind of other plans in the works to maybe realign that pathway a little bit. So this is kind of what we would recommend when that work is underway. And finally, the end of the route comes to Pinecrest Drive. So the existing road includes 2 vehicle lanes going in opposite directions and a sidewalk on one side. And again, we're proposing a local street bikeway concept with the Sharrow pavement markings. And again, this is because it's a very quiet kind of residential street with low volumes of traffic. And we have proposed on the next slide, trialing something called a chicane. So here you can see this sort of rectangular area. And we're proposing constructing this just out of flexible post bollards and paint, which are pretty affordable materials in the toolbox to alter the infrastructure. And that kind of forces the cars to slow down and take turns going around that. And that's really to further slow the vehicle traffic down to make it feel safer for the people cycling. And there's a cut through there where people cycling can continue on without making that kind of curvy maneuver. And that is a good kind of pilot project to try and communicate with residents throughout the trial and see what people are thinking, because it can be a good way to kind of calm traffic, and especially on a residential street that is typically welcome to have a nice kind of calmer atmosphere there. And so that concludes the design part of the presentation. And so just a little bit about some next steps in the process. And I know that the town already has some funding for some active transportation infrastructure, so that's really exciting. So the next step after this for the Blue Route Hubs project would be to engage with consultants to do a detailed design to kind of shore up that design process and get a little bit more into detail. Applying for provincial and federal funding, which we've seen there be more opportunities for active transportation funding from these levels of government over the last few years, which is awesome and really kind of enables this project to be successful. And then constructing the new infrastructure. So we're proposing that this would kind of start over the next couple of years, and then work would kind of move on to those other two routes in the network to go through that design process and get to the construction phase. And Terry might have more details on some of that work that's already underway. And that pretty much wraps it up for me. I am very happy to take questions about this, and yeah, really thankful to have this opportunity to be here tonight.
Thanks, Megan, for taking us through the design principles that have been built around the Blue Route concept through Port Hawkesbury. I will open up the floor for questions. So perhaps we'll start with Councillor McIver.
Yes, Your Worship. First, thank you, Megan, for the presentation. You are right. We are interested in all the multi-use walkways and bicycle routes, and we have projects on the go now, and hopefully we're going to start some of them this summer. So we have, I believe, some of the plans already in place, and Terry may be able to share them with you. So thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you, Councillor McIver.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so over to you, Deputy Mayor Coyne.
Through you, Your Worship, to Megan. Thank you for the presentation. And just like Councillor McIver said, we're in the process of some more AT trails, and it's nice to see this design. It looks pretty interesting, and I can see us working well together. So thanks again for your presentation.
Okay, Councillor McQuarrie. Oh, sorry, Megan, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Megan, again, just echo the other councillors. Thank you very much for the presentation. So yes, as Councillor McIver said, and you're probably very well aware of funding that the town has been giving to advance some other active transportation projects. And yes, it'll be very interesting to see, get the design work done for what's being proposed and what you're presenting to us tonight, and I very much look forward to it. Just one question, Megan, in terms of the projects, Reeve Street, route number 2, can you just elaborate a little bit on that particular route?
So the concept design that I presented tonight doesn't really include Reeve Street. I kind of showed it there at the end just as a potential for the future. But the route that I was really looking at, Granville, Sydney, and Old Sydney Road. So I haven't really put a lot of kind of
Sorry there, you're breaking up. I can't hear you, Megan.
I think we lost her.
Yeah, hi Megan. We lost your, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. I just asked everyone to mute, and maybe that'll help.
Yeah.
She froze up here on me anyways.
That's okay. I guess maybe we'll, if you do have any kind of follow-up questions, Councillor McCrory and Councillor McDougall, if she's able to hop back on, then we'll allow for the questions to continue. That makes sense?
Sure. Yep. Thank you.
Just while we're waiting for Megan to figure out her sound issue, the partnership with Bicycle Nova Scotia and the town of Port Hawkesbury has been extremely important to us. We have been, as council knows, we've been very successful in applications and advancing active transportation routes for all ages and abilities, as Megan had stated. Without the work of Bicycle Nova Scotia partnering with us, that would be very difficult to do. Bicycle Nova Scotia gives us that credibility when we put plans together. They've been very, very good in creating feedback and giving us ideas and that real planning expertise. That's been extremely important to us. So for I don't know if you can hear that, Megan, but we've been extremely fortunate that they chose the town of Port Hawkesbury as a project because we're one of few communities in the province where this is occurring, and we're very fortunate to have Bicycle Nova Scotia work with us and to make that connection. So thank you very much, Megan, and the whole team at Bicycle Nova Scotia.
Hi, I apologize. My internet just cut out, but I'm back on.
Hopefully you heard some of what I said. It was good.
Yeah, thank
Megan,
you so
so
much.
to pick up from where we left off, Councillor McCrory was just finishing off a statement, a question, and then back to the chair.
Okay, thank you. Megan, if you wanted to kind of finish your thoughts about kind of the design piece, not really including Reeve Street, if you had any other comment on that.
Yeah, just I guess that's basically it. That as part of this concept design that we did for the specific route, Reeve Street wasn't really the focus. I've just kind of shown it here because I know it's kind of in future plans already.
Perfect, thank you. Did you have any follow-up questions, Councillor McCrory?
Well, just I guess, Your Worship, in the document on page 40, Megan, it does lay out the plan to do the same sort of concept design work that has been done for the Old Sydney Road and Granville Street for Reeve Street and McIntosh Avenue and Tamarack Drive. And there's a bullet there that indicates that we, I guess, the town would be going forward to apply for funding from the provincial and federal government to support the construction and detailed design work for implementing routes 2 and 3. So it's a pretty black and white. So I guess that's where we would be moving, would we?
Yeah, so we've provided this concept design for this route, and then this kind of concept design and detailed design phases would need to be a consulting company for the other 2 routes.
Right, right.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yep, Your Worship, it does. Thank you very much, Megan.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Megan. And over to Councillor McDougall, if you have any questions.
Thanks, Megan, for your report. No questions at the time, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Megan, I just have a few tiny questions. I guess the concept that shows Old Sydney, I'm assuming that is going to be for the portion of Old Sydney that's on the other side of Reeve Street that connects to Tamarack?
Yes.
Okay, but I was just curious. I just wanted to confirm that. And the concept, once that, I guess that multimodal transportation trail kind of spits people out into the Tamarack area, and just the concept of those kind of bump out lanes that just kind of help with regard to traffic calming. I've seen those in stalls in Halifax, and they seem to work well. Certainly nothing that we'd be used to seeing around here, but not to say that it wouldn't work. But I thought that the concept was pretty neat. So I guess as we explore that kind of potential traffic calming mechanism, and I'm assuming that these are such that they could be removed for snow removal in the winter and put back in place if need be for the off-shoulder seasons.
Yeah, so that's what I'm proposing here, is that it would be temporary in nature with just paint, and the flexible bollards can be installed and taken out quite easily. And after kind of trialing it that way, if it was something that the community really liked having there, something more permanent could be put in with like a poured concrete with kind of planting and stuff like that in the middle. And that would be more of a permanent thing, and snow clearing would have to be considered in that sense. But for now, this proposal would be very temporary and could be taken out for the winter.
Kind of trialed, and if it works really well, then you could put something permanent in place, like which is the case in Halifax and different areas.
Exactly.
I guess, Councillor McCrory, I see you have your mic on. Did you have a follow-up question?
Oh, Your Worship, sorry, I should have shut it off. Sorry about that.
Okay, I guess with that, Megan, I would just thank you for your presentation. And Terry, did you have any other comments before we let Megan be on her way?
No, again, just thank you, Megan. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we hope to continue this relationship, and we'll be calling upon your expertise guaranteed as we move forward. So thank you very much for tonight.
Awesome.
Thank you,
I really
Megan.
appreciate it.
And we really value the relationship that we have with Bicycle Nova Scotia and the work that you're doing. We're really excited for the work that we're doing in the future with you.
Yeah, too. We look forward to being available for questions and things like that on an ongoing basis.
Fantastic. So we do have your contact information in case council have any follow-up questions over the next couple of days. Have a great evening, and thank you for your time. Okay, so that concludes our gallery presentations this evening. We're going to move on to acknowledgements. So I do have a few acknowledgements this evening. I'd first like to acknowledge the passing of Frank Wright. I was saddened to hear of his passing. This is a huge loss on so many levels. As a Second World War veteran who was once active in our Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 43, as a kind and active community member whose love for his native Cape Breton was only matched by his artistic talent to capture its beauty on canvas. He is famous for his art showcasing the island he loved, and also the timeless historic art portraying 19th and early 20th century British and North American ships, some set in our own historical context. The J. Franklin Wright Art Gallery, located in the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre, will forever stand as a testament of his well-loved and talented artists, and as a testament to all artists in the region. And it will continue to showcase many artists in his memory. At this time, I would offer deepest condolences to his family and friends. Secondly, I would like to acknowledge International Women's Day, which falls on March 8th. The theme is Gender Equal World, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can hashtag break the bias. So I'd ask at this time if council has any other acknowledgements they would like to share. Hearing none, I would move on then to approval of council minutes, agenda item number 6. At this time, I would call for any errors or omissions of our public meeting of February 1st, 2022. Okay, hearing none, I will move on to business arising from the minutes. At this time, does council have any business arising they would like to discuss this evening?
Yes, Your Worship. Just to go to number 8, Council Committee Reports, 8.2. It was noted that Mayor Brenda Chisholm Beaton notified Council that a meeting will be scheduled with the Cape Breton Partnership once a date has been selected. Can you advise Council, has there been a date set for a meeting with the partnership?
Are those from the minutes of our committee of the whole or our public meeting
No,
minutes?
a public meeting, Your Worship. Yeah.
Okay, I don't have a date at this time that we've been able to establish with the partnership, but I'm happy to do a follow-up. I appreciate the reminder. But I did do the initial connection to relay the message from council that we would like to meet. So we would just have to ratify a date of availability and then put that to council to make sure that date works for council as well. Any other business arising? Okay, we'll move on then to agenda 8, which is council committee reports, and I'll hand things over to Terry Doyle.
Yes, Your Worship, from Committee of Whole, there's a couple of recommendations for motions for consideration. Motions for consideration that the town of Port Hawkesbury supports the Red Tribe boxing event on May 14th, 2022 by donating half of the venue rental costs.
Okay, thank you, Terry. What is the wishes of council?
I'd move the motion, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. The motion has been moved by Councillor MacIver. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion has been seconded by Deputy Mayor Aucoin. Any discussion on the motion, or if you're prepared, you can call the question.
Question.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved.
The second motion for consideration is that the town of Port Hawkesbury will write off utility account number 012130.02 in the amount of $173.04, the accrued interest.
Okay, what is the wishes of council?
I'll move with the motion.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
Question.
Thank you. The question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved.
And that's my committee of whole report, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. That concluding our report from Committee of the Whole, we will look at our approval of the minutes of the Committee of Whole dated February 15th, 2022. Any errors or omissions for those Committee of the Whole meeting minutes? And if there are none, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion moved.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Is there a seconder?
Seconded, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor McCrory. Any discussion, or if you're ready, you can call the question.
Question?
Question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the meetings are approved. Meeting minutes are approved. I would ask at this point if there are any business arising from Committee of the Whole.
Yes, Your Worship. Under the Facilities, Operations and Parks report, which is, what number was it? It's number 6, and then it's the Facilities, Operations, Parks report. I'm just wondering, there's mention about an application is being prepared for 3 EV charging stations, and the closing is March 18th. I just wonder, have the applications been submitted, or are they still in the process of being completed?
Okay, thank you for your question, Councillor. I guess, is there any update with regard to that item, Terry, that you can offer up for information?
The application is still being completed.
Okay, any follow-up questions, Councillor McCrory?
No, Your Worship, thank you.
Okay, any other business arising from our Committee of the Whole minutes? Deputy Mayor Aucoin?
No.
No, you're good. Just checking because your mic was on. Okay, so hearing no other business arising, we will move on then to agenda item number 9, which is motions from in-camera session. We do not have any this evening. So we'll move on to correspondence. We don't have any to report on this evening, nor do we have proclamations or resolutions this evening. So we'll move on to agenda item number 12, which is other business. And we will start with council expenses. So I will hand things over to our CAO, Terry Doyle, and he will review those expenses for council information.
Yes, Your Worship, council has received the expense report for the month of January, and I'm sorry, for the month of February, and the total expenses for that month is $450. Again, the report will be posted on our webpage for public to view.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from council with regard to the expense report? Okay, we'll move on to Eastern District Planning Commission appointments. Over to you, Terry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is an annual event. It's a requirement under the MGA that we appoint specific persons to carry out our planning roles. And this is a recommendation from Eastern District Planning. And the recommendation is for a motion to approve the following persons to be acting in the roles of building inspector, development officer, fire inspector, and dangers and unsightly premises. Building inspector Andre Sampson, Amanda Esterbrooks, and Sean Donovan, with alternates Harry Martel, David McKenzie, and Jonathan Martin. Special constables Sean Donovan and Jonathan Martin. Alternates development officer is Wanda Ryan, with an alternate John Bain, Andrew Jones, Leanne Martin, and Don Sutherland. Fire inspectors, the fire inspector appointed would be Andre Sampson, with alternate Harry Martel, Amanda Esterbrooks, Sean Donovan, D. McKenzie, and Jay Martin. Dangerous and unsightly premises, primary administrators are Jonathan Martin and John Bain. Alternates Andre Sampson and Amanda Esterbrooks, with special constables Sean Donovan and Jonathan Martin. I would ask for a motion to appoint the planning officials as indicated in the letter of request from John Bain, the Executive Director of Eastern District Planning.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry. So what is the wishes of council with regard to these recommendations?
I'd make the motion, Your Worship.
Okay, so moved by Councillor McQuarrie, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Coin. Any discussion with regard to these recommendations, or if you're prepared, you can call the question.
Question.
Okay, question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the recommendation is approved by Council Terry. Okay, the next you're welcome. The next item is Festival of the Strait. So I did have an opportunity to speak with Councillor McDougall with regard to this item. So I wanted to make sure I added it to the agenda. So I'll hand things over to Councillor McDougall to lead discussion.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for putting it on the agenda. We did have a discussion. I guess it's been 2 years since we had a Festival of the Strait. This year, it looks like it's going to be going forward with all guns a-blaring. We had a meeting earlier. Our past chair has left. She's too busy to be doing this right now, Dana. And the last meeting, there was Kevin McCackman, myself, and Corinne. But I guess the point of what I'm doing tonight and looking for is most of our committee structure has 2 council members and an alternate on. On the Festival of the Strait Committee, there's just 1 council member, and I'm hoping that we can be able to get another council member and an alternate on the Festival Committee, because I think within the next starting within the next few weeks, I think the meetings are going to be quite a few meetings, and we're going to get things going. And so I guess I'm looking for, it doesn't have to be done tonight, Your Worship, but in the near future, if we can get another council member and maybe an alternate on that committee, would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure, I appreciate you bringing this forward, and it kind of sounds that, you know, we're the 1st of March. And the July 1st sneaks up fairly quickly. So perhaps we can open up the discussion for tonight, and hopefully and expedite this to ensure a successful council, a Festival of the Strait this year. So with that, I'm glad to offer my name as an alternate. I don't have the time to commit to the full-time position. Councillor McDougall, but I'm happy to offer my name as an alternate to fill in when I can. So I'd ask council if any of our remaining councillors would consider the other position as a second position to sit with Huey on this committee.
Your Worship, I'd like to nominate Deputy Mayor O'Coin to serve on the committee with Councillor McDougall.
Okay, Deputy Mayor O'Coin, I'm assuming that you also had a nomination.
Well, I had a question actually for Councillor McDougall. Councillor McDougall, these meetings, are they during the day or the evening?
Most of them in the evening, Deputy Mayor.
If they're in the evening, I would be more than happy to come on with you on the Festival of the Strait.
Okay, so
Thank you very much.
Okay, fantastic. So I guess back over to Councillor McQuarrie, if you would like to frame your nomination in the form of a motion.
Well, the motion is that council appoint Deputy Mayor O'Coin as a representative on the Festival of the Strait Committee.
Okay, and do you wish to also make the motion for my name to stand as alternate, or should that be separate?
I think that should be separate, Your Worship.
Okay, so do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it, Your Worship.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? And I guess I'm assuming that Councillor O'Coin, you will accept that nomination?
Yes.
Okay, I do have to ask very quickly if there are any other nominations on the floor. Okay, so and if there are any discussion, and if not, if you're prepared, you can call the question.
Question.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved.
And your worship, I'd like to move that you be the alternate also.
Okay, I would accept that designation. If
I'll
there's a
second it.
Second the motion.
So it's been seconded by Deputy Mayor Aucoin. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question.
Just on the discussion,
Absolutely.
your worship. Just on the question, your worship. I know Corinne works downstairs, you're upstairs in your office, and Kevin's around a lot around there, Kevin McCacker. If there's any correspondence or what, could Corinne and you do it through your office to make it?
Sure. I'm happy to help in any way I can with regard to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other
Question.
discussion? The question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved, but just one other item, Councillor McDougall, if you will, with regard to this agenda item. I just a quick question. How long did Dana serve as chair in your recollection?
You're muted.
Oh, sorry, Huey, you just got to unmute yourself.
But,
You already got. We missed the whole. We
You
missed the
that
whole
whole
half
thing.
of your history lesson. Yeah, you're gonna have to start
well,
over.
actually, I was going to defer the history lesson to you because she was there and you were there also when I came on. So I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure how long she was there. To tell you the truth.
So I wasn't as active with Festival probably the last 3 years, but I do know that she did serve as co-chair with Tanya England for probably about 5 years, quite some time ago. So I can
That was
confirm
before.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she would have co-chaired Festival of the Strait only for like maybe the most recent year that I was active on that committee. So the last 3 years that you were active on the committee, she was the chair for most of that time?
Well, we only really had the one. Yeah, she was the chair all that time up until, but we only had the one festival. 2 were canceled, obviously, because of COVID.
So she would have chaired the Festival of the Strait for at least 8 years, if those factors stand correct.
Yeah, probably, Your Worship, and maybe since you're bringing it up, Your Worship, maybe I think a letter of appreciation, and I would move a letter of appreciation for Dana for the work that she done, if that would be all right with council.
You were definitely picking up what I was dropping down, Huey.
Yes, I was, and thank you very much.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we do have a motion to send a letter of appreciation to outgoing chair, or she's now former chair, Dana Ferguson, on behalf of the work she has in her leadership for Festival of the Strait for a period of, and we can kind of wiggle out the correct amount of years prior to writing the letter. So any other discussion?
Question.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. Any other lingering items, Councillor McDougall, for this agenda item?
No, that's fine, Your Worship. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you bringing that forward. Okay, our last other business item is a letter of support for the Buckingham Boxing Club, and that is brought forward by Deputy Mayor Aucoin. So over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I circulated a letter that I received from the Boxing Club, Dawa Council and staff, and basically what they're doing is they're asking for a letter of support, saying that we support their boxing club and their event that's being held on May 14th. And they're applying for some provincial grant money, some funding to help move the club along. They pretty much sent us a draft of the requested letter, and I'm just bringing it to council to see if council would approve that letter of support.
Okay, thank you for bringing that forward, Deputy Mayor. Just a very brief question. I'm just wondering in terms of timeline, like how quickly would they need the letter of support?
I do believe that the deadline is in 2 weeks' time for the
Right.
For the application.
Okay, so what is the wishes of council with regard to this request?
I would move to send the letter of support, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McIver. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Or if you're prepared, you can call the question.
Question?
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the letter of support for Buckingham Boxing Club is approved. And Jason, is there any other items with regard to that addition, or not addition, I guess, other business item?
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we'll move on now to our 3 approved additions. The first one that I added was with regard for consideration by council for potentially purchasing and flying the Ukrainian flag in support for what's going on currently in terms of what they're facing at war with Russia. I know other municipalities across the province of Nova Scotia are partaking in different ways. Some are raising Ukrainian flags. Some are displaying Ukrainian colors along their building with lights. There are a variety of things, but it seems that one of the biggest showing of support is the Ukrainian flag. So I would ask council to consider that as a suggestion. And yeah, so I guess I just wanted to put it out there to see what council would like to do.
Yes, Your Worship, I move the purchase of the Ukrainian flag and to have it flown for the month of March, or do we already have a commitment to fly another flag for March?
To the best of my knowledge, I believe we just have one request coming forward. And Melissa, you may need to kind of jog my memory. I believe for a certain fixed amount of time in early April.
That would be the autism flag, I believe.
Yeah. Was that then? I believe that was in the month of April, Melissa and Jason.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't appear there would be any conflict with flying the Ukrainian flag once we do have one in hand. Like we could definitely fly that for the month of March.
I will second the motion.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion that's on the floor? If you're prepared, you can. Question has been called. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. I appreciate council support on that item. The second addition is recommendation coming from our Port Hawkesbury Waterfront Advisory Committee. I will hand things over to Councillor McIver for that item. Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship. Yourself and Councillor McDougall and myself were at the waterfront meeting last night, and I brought up that I have a local family that may be visiting the area this summer, and they would like to put a plaque, sponsor a bench on the waterfront. So the Waterfront Advisory Committee discussed and looked at benches and made a decision that we should go with the benches that we already have in place, similar to them, maybe all composite. And I believe Councillor McDougall may have some to add, as he brought up chairs, so maybe he would like to discuss that.
Sure. So I'm assuming, just for clarity, there'll be 2 recommendations coming forward, and you're bringing forward the recommendation for a similar style of bench that we already have here in town that could be located at the waterfront that could accommodate the family that in a timely fashion for their visit in the summer.
That's
To
correct.
remember up one. Okay. And then the second recommendation I will hand over to you, Councillor McDougall.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. And the other recommendation was to strategically have in place, and is to get some Adirondack chairs for the at the park down there at the Sunset Park. And we discussed it. Actually, we discussed it at large, and part of it was that we said we'd get them when we decided what the park was going to look like, but that may take a long time. And these Adirondack chairs can be moved in and out if they have to be. So I think there's a lot of citizens are asking around that they want some of those chairs down around there. So I guess it's a recommendation, and it's up to council to purchase some Adirondack chairs and strategically place them down around the Sunset Park.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And I guess I guess the alignment between both recommendations are that both seating, both benches and Adirondack chairs are meant to be made of the composite material, so that it's be able to have a lasting power in a kind of an unforgiving environment. I believe, is that correct, Mark?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and both in the chairs would be similarly styled, so that would match the theme of our pre-existing benches around town.
I do have a question, Your Worship.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
For you to Councillor McDougall, how many chairs are we looking for?
That's a good question. I was thinking about 48, but maybe 5 might be enough.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
5
sure.
sounds good, because I was thinking 6.
6 might be good too, yeah.
Yeah, I think actually just to, in Mark and Huey, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the number kind of being discussed last night was around like half a dozen. Mark, do you recall? I think it was
Yes,
6.
I believe you are correct.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other comments or questions with regard to both recommendations?
I'll make the first motion.
Okay.
For the bench.
Okay, perfect.
Or are we going to do both at the same time?
Probably, I guess, Mark, what would you recommend?
Well, we could do both at the same time, and the benches were, I think there's up to maybe half a dozen of those too. That would be all along the waterfront, and they would be placed.
I think you're correct. I think both numbers were around the 6 amount.
Okay, so I'd make a motion to purchase 6 benches and 6 chairs.
Okay, thank you for the waterfront.
For the waterfront, yes.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Seconded, Your Worship.
Okay, any discussion with regard to the motion and the recommendation?
Question?
Question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the motion was approved, and I guess just for the benefit of staff, I know Jason and Gordy were both on the call for the waterfront meeting, and they did a great job, Terry, just reviewing the different designs and styles that they had in terms of their presentation to the waterfront committee. So pass on our thanks to them. They made that those recommendations easy to cultivate for council this evening. And Mark,
So
did you?
I'm not certain that the costs were passed on, so we're probably in the order of $10,000.
Yeah, I think we did. I think there was a little bit of that discussion. Mark, do you recall?
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, they did pass on the estimate of the rough cost per item.
Yes, I guess the second part coming from the waterfront was we had a discussion about what I guess the contribution would be to sponsor the bench.
Yeah.
And what came out of that, I guess it's coming to council, because I wasn't quite sure or clear what was coming from the committee, but this will give Gordy time and Jason to have the benches ordered now that it's approved. But something that council should think about is
A policy,
what we would charge, and put a policy in place for memorial plaques on the benches, because the family planned to visit in July, I believe, and they would like a plaque on a bench. So it's maybe something to think about, and we can get something together for our next meeting if everybody thinks about what we should charge.
Perfect. Terry, anything else that we might need to add to this in terms of information?
No, so I mean, we're right in the middle of planning. That's occurring for these installations that's going to be finished within a couple of months.
Okay.
So that'll be integrated into design. So
perfect.
That's
okay, fantastic. So I guess in terms of, just over to you, Councillor McIver, in terms of communicating information back to the family, is that something that you're okay with doing? And
I passed the emails on to Gordon last night.
Okay, so
as soon as
staff will do the communication.
Staff can communicate that maybe the benches are approved to order, and when we get back to them, what we think we should have for plaques, like if we're going to do the plaque and what the costs would be, you know, what we'd be passing on to them.
Okay, great. Anything else coming out of the Waterfront Committee from last night that requires council attention?
Not from me.
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor McDougall.
Yeah, I have one quick comment. Since you mentioned Jason and Gordy, the great job they did last night. I'd just like to mention that Jason gave a good description and what's going on with their AT trail down that way, and how it's going to be maneuvered, and how we're going to get around the yacht club, and how we're going to connect up to going north up towards the parkway. So just wanted to give a heads up there, and a kudos to that for his
perfect
good presentation you gave.
Perfect, thank you, Councillor. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to our final addition, which is post-COVID restrictions with regard to town policies going forward. So I'll hand things over to Deputy Mayor Aucoin for that item. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. With restrictions being lifted, hopefully March 21st, fingers crossed, something that came up that I thought about today. Right now, our policy is that all town employees are to be double vaccinated. And I guess my question is, do we continue this moving forward? Because in the very near future, we're going to be hiring our summer students. We're going to probably be hiring somebody for the summer with Public Works. So I just want to have discussion and see where council sits on this. For the first part of this discussion is, do we want to keep the same policy in place as far as vaccinations?
Okay, I guess before we open up the floor for discussion, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for taking that forward. I guess I would defer to Terry. Like, I guess, is this something that would require some staff recommendations to potentially bring forward to our committee of the whole, or do you? I guess I just wanted to get your kind of take on it.
Yes, Your Worship, very much so. So we have there's an AMA session on this subject tomorrow with legal advice from an HR consultant. So it's a decision that was a serious decision when it was arrived at, and similarly, it should be a serious decision when it's removed. So let's look at all the aspects around that and have a discussion at committee of whole. There's no immediate concern around that. If there is a hiring that will take place between now and committee of whole or future, then we can have further discussion. It is an HR policy, which is a staff responsibility. But certainly it is something that we're fully considering now and we'll take back for discussion at committee of whole.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And just to note, like our committee of the whole falls on the 15th of March, so it still gives us adequate time for council kind of to have some conversations. And you know, based on the conversations you'll have with AMANS, I mean, there could be some information that you can bump forward to council in advance of those conversations as well. Unless you have anything else with this particular item, Deputy Mayor, we can potentially move on to the second part of your addition.
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And the second part is our meetings. Are we staying virtual? Are we going in person? Are we doing hybrid? I don't know what the Municipal Government Act states once all these restrictions are lifted. So
Okay,
Harry could give some input.
Perfect. I guess I would premise that your question with, I think it does depend. I think it varies from council to council, if that's correct, Terry. I think our town council would have to have a policy around virtual participation. And surely we were enabled to participate virtually as by merit of the state of emergency through the Department of Municipal Affairs. But I'll hand things over to Terry kind of to, I guess, take a little bit of a deeper dive in terms of what our options are.
Yes, Your Worship. So going on past what we expect to be the implementation of phase 3, there will be the requirement for a policy if council wishes to have a hybrid virtual and in-person format. And I'd still like to get clarification on that from Municipal Affairs. But that's certainly my understanding at this point before we move to that point. There are a number of councils that are planning to go in person at this point in time. But I will get clarification on that for if we want further discussion on this at committee of whole.
Sure. So I guess the 15th, once again, just kind of building on what we discussed just in the first part of Jason's addition, March 15th still kind of falls within the parameters of the state of emergency, and we're not going to see those changes by then. So I'm assuming council is okay with virtual committee of the whole on March 15th. And then we continue those conversations to see what subsequent public meetings, how they look in terms of April. And by then, hopefully we'll have some more information from, potentially what's coming down the pipe through AMANS, as well as what's coming down through the pipe from Municipal Affairs in the province. And yeah, I think those are some important questions, and thank you for bringing those forward, Jason. And certainly, we want to make sure that we're coloring within the lines in terms of what we do past March 21st. Does council have any comments or questions at this point with regard to Jason's addition?
Your Worship, I don't mean to interrupt, but there was one item that was missed, and it's a very time-sensitive issue.
Okay.
And that's council has had I know what was included in the package was an agreement with the province of Nova Scotia for cost sharing of the Reeve Street survey, which requires a resolution. And
we must have missed that. My apologies. Was that under resolutions?
No, it's actually the slide is next.
Okay.
If council wishes to consider that,
sure.
I very much appreciate that.
We'll go back to agenda item number 11 after we conclude this last edition, Terry. That's no problem. I guess I would ask if there's any comments or questions with regard to the addition around I guess post-COVID restrictions, or if council is satisfied with continuing the conversation at committee of the whole. I guess if we could get some feedback from council with regard to that action plan.
I'm good to wait to the 15th.
Okay, Councillor McGregor. Okay, Councillor McDougall.
Yeah, we can discuss it at committee of the whole. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McCory.
Oh, yes, your worship, I'm fine with that, no problem.
Okay, anything else, Jason, on that item? Okay, thank you for adding it. So we'll go, just go back to that resolution that Terry had up there, if you will, Terry.
Your
Apologies
worship, as council should know, we've been working with a marketing firm to prepare a survey for the people of the town of Port Hawkesbury to express their thoughts on Reeve Street, on the changes that occurred on Reeve Street. Part of that, of the survey costs, the sort of the original agreement was a cost sharing agreement, and that's 25% with the town of Port Hawkesbury and 75% cost being borne by the province of Nova Scotia. So I would ask council if you have any questions on that, and if not, to consider a resolution with respect to a cost sharing agreement. I will state that the cost not to the estimated cost now is $20,000. So our portion of that would be $5,000.
Okay, so Terry, I guess the understanding would be that it would not exceed the 5,000 at this point. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
That's not how the agreement is written. So
okay.
that is the understanding, but that's not how the agreement is written.
Okay, so we do know the estimate.
Very clearly, we're 25% of the cost. The estimate is under that value at this point in time, and so that's
okay. So the estimated cost is around the $20,000 mark.
I would put the motion forward.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do we have a seconder? And then
I second the motion.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor as presented to council with regard to a resolution of council for cost sharing. Is there any discussion or questions? So over to you, Councilor McDougall.
Yes, I'm a little confused here. What's it about again, Terry?
So it's a survey that will go out to the residents of the town of Port Hawkesbury to get their opinion on the success of components of the Reeve Street Improvement Project, specifically with the traffic changes on Reeve Street, but also including some of the other work that was really the responsibility of the town of Port Hawkesbury, and thus the cost sharing.
Okay, any follow-up questions, Councilor McDougall?
Yeah, I guess I agree with the second part of it. I'm just seeing the email now. I guess you sent this yesterday, did you? Anyway, I agree with the other parts, but Reeve Street is not our street. And are we paying for something that the province should be doing? Maybe they should be paying for a percentage of some of our streets or something. Are we talking about other components other than Reeve Street? Are we talking about the Reeve Street project? Are we just talking about the street itself?
So it is the Reeve Street project. There's components that.
Can't hear you, Terry.
Are you saying you can't hear me?
No, Terry, you just cut out a tiny bit when you just started answering. If you want to just start over.
Okay. So the Reeve Street project, or Destination Reeve Street, involved a lot of components. Some of it was streetscape, some of it was facade improvements. There was a number of elements of the total project that belonged to the town of Port Hawkesbury. Did not have impact on the actual lane changes and traffic changes that occurred on the street that's owned by the province of Nova Scotia. So that is in part the reason that we put that forward. The other part is that there's items on that survey that wouldn't necessarily belong to the more so belong to the province. We're looking at a much wider reach than was originally envisioned. So So the sort of the tentative agreement requiring council approval was to share that to 25% to 75%.
So Terry, like for example, some of the satisfaction with regard to our active transportation or multimodal lanes and that sort of thing. So like it's kind of the whole gamut of destination Reeve Street, not just the reconfiguration of that 1 kilometer portion of the street.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. I guess does that make sense, Councillor McDougall, or do you have any?
Yeah, yes, Your Worship, that makes more sense. Yes.
Okay. Do you have any follow-up questions, Councillor McDougall?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Over to you, Councillor McIver. I see you have your mic on in case you have a question or comment.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Terry. I read the email, and if I understood it right, that the province is saying this is the last, I guess, part of the project is to go out to the public and get their opinion on it. And this would conclude the project once this was done. Am I correct?
So, I mean, there's study being completed, and part of that study includes this component. So we would like to see sort of that total component. So, as an example, changes in speed, the incidence of accidents, or the so there's statistics plus this survey, which will come together to form the completion of the project.
That's what I thought, and one of my concerns was, and maybe I missed it, but at the start of this project, there was a 3-month grace and a 1-year pilot, and we were supposed to have a report from transportation, and it's been put off because of COVID, and we haven't seen the traffic in the last 2 years that we normally see. So I would say this summer, we're actually going to see a lot of more traffic from tourists, hopefully, and actually see what the road diet actually did to traffic movement. And I can't support this resolution if this is the final step, because I want to see that pilot project. I want to see the numbers of how much traffic is on Reeve Street, if there's any traffic backups on Reeve Street because of the amount of traffic. And that was part of the agreement, and I didn't see it. So if this resolution to cost share of this survey completes the project, then I won't support it without that pilot report.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Councillor McIver. So I guess in terms of clarity, Terry, I would assume that the results of the survey would be shared with, I guess, obviously with everyone who's cost sharing on the survey for the overall project, in terms of the satisfaction of all the changes, including the road diet pilot that I think Councillor McIver you're referring specifically to, and to give, I guess, council an opportunity to understand how those changes are impacting in terms of traffic incidences, of accidents, incidents of speed, at a time that's a little bit more comparable to post-COVID. Is my understanding that correctly, Councillor McIver?
Yes, Your Worship. But like I said, I have no problem with the survey if we can get clarification that we're going to get the results from the pilot. But the way it's stated is that I think that it's over once the survey is done, and that kind of concerns me.
So maybe we want to make an amendment to the motion to ensure that there is that added step.
Yes, I think I could live with that. I have concerns about, because I know there's a lot of traffic during the summers, and if we have traffic backed up to, the light industrial park had lights and stuff, I mean, then we have issues. So I want to be able to address those issues and not have transportation say, no, the project is over.
Got it. I guess, Terry, you may have a little bit more information than I have had, because I haven't participated in as many of the more recent meetings. But I did participate in some meetings last year. I believe Deputy Mayor Coyne was there. I believe Councillor McQuarrie was there. They were looking at getting feedback in terms of how the road currently functions. I do understand that there would be a plan going forward should a decision be made that the road diet could be something more permanent. So I would assume that before that work is done, that there would have to be a real careful look at what they have currently, and all the information that you are suggesting be looked at, Councillor McIver. So I don't know, Terry, if you have any update you can offer with regard to, I guess, that assumption that I might have.
Just some clarity. So we're asking for a resolution to enable the mayor. I'm gonna read it if that's okay. It's
Sure.
understood that a large number of improvements have been made recently to Reeve Street, the principal thoroughfare in the town of Port Hawkesbury, to clearly understand public and commercial awareness, opinions, and impacts of these changes. The town of Port Hawkesbury, in cooperation with Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, seeks to commission a survey of town residents and commercial enterprises. This is something that council has been asking for a number of years, actually. And all of this, all of the resolution does is ask that the administration, the mayor, and the CIO be able to enter into a cost-sharing agreement to collect this information. This does not state when the survey is over. This does not state what other information is to be collected, when that information is to be collected, or any other items around that. This is one component. This is data collection.
Right.
And as we're doing data collection on traffic counts, on speeds, on all of those things, we can certainly express our serious concerns about the data collected with respect to counts and speeds, as it relates to with the data being collected over 2 years while we're in COVID conditions. We have seen the amount of traffic in COVID last summer being very similar to what we have seen in years prior to the improvements, but that's something that we can pass on to NSTIR. But this is really about the survey, which is something that we've asked for before. I would ask for Councillor McQuarrie and the Deputy Mayor to comment on that, because you've been part of this process.
Your Worship, through you to Terry. Sorry, Terry, I know you mentioned my name, but I didn't get what you were. I didn't hear what you were saying.
I think your last question just blocked out a little bit, Terry, if you want to repeat it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure why that occurred. I'm just saying that this resolution is about entering into a cost sharing agreement so we can get this survey completed, and it's a project that's been on the books, and it's been a request from council for years. So I just like to look at the isolation and move this data collection process forward. And I've asked for the input from the two councillors, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor McQuarrie, to comment on that.
Okay,
Sure,
thank you, Terry. So yeah, absolutely, we're very interested in getting the feedback from the community in terms of how they feel this change has affected them and whether it's been beneficial or not. The survey itself is, I would say, very all-encompassing. It covers a great deal of a great number of topics, and I'm very pleased to see what questions are being asked. But I just, to Councillor McIver, I'm not sure, Councillor McIver, if I think I get what you're saying, but are you also suggesting that the survey perhaps should not be done until we're into, let's say, regular times and we have the regular sort of traffic. Would that be your suggestion, that the survey be held off until like later after the summer?
Through you, Your Worship.
Sure.
No, Sir McCory. When reading the email, what I take from it, that this would conclude the project, like that. That's it. And
Right.
I have no issue with the survey with the residents or commercial enterprises, but I want to make sure that in August or September that we get a report from transportation of the traffic movement. Has there been delays or anything like that because of the diet? Because if traffic comes up to its normally, the vehicle movements on Reeve Street during the summer vacation. Like I say, if the survey is not the end of it, I have no issue with it. If it is the end of it, I would like to see the report before the survey is done, if that's how I read the email.
Or see the survey results and have the report concurrently before a final decision is made.
Correct, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Your Worship, my understanding is the survey results are going to inform the final report. This is going to be part of the final report, and there's other issues that this committee has continued to discuss, and that's improved signage coming up the hill at Reeve Street, and improved signage to show the where the 3 lanes start at the Holy Trinity Church, and also the crossing lights at Old Sydney Road and McSween Street. So those are other issues that we're still discussing, and I appreciate what Terry said, is that the count last year is just about the same as it was pre-COVID in terms of the traffic. So yeah, so my final comment is I think we want to move forward with this, and Councillor McIver, I too would hope that this is not representing the end of the project, but as I said, it be incorporated into that final report. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Aucoin, over to you.
Through you, Your Worship. Councillor McCory explained it pretty well in every meeting we've had that I've been in anyway. I never had the understanding that this survey was the end. I understand the concerns though from Councillor McIver, because the email kind of alludes to that. But in our meetings, it was never brought out that way whatsoever. It was, well, we actually had a lot of input in the survey questions ourselves, which was kind of different working with the province on a provincial-owned highway. But they asked us what we wanted in there and what we thought was important, and I see some of it, being put in there. So I'm okay with the survey being done, and I do share Councillor McIver's concern though. That email it did make it sound like this was the end, even though in our meetings that was never discussed that way, that this would come back with the count and there would be decisions made from there forward.
Okay, I guess Councillor McIver, I think we just had a very kind of loose conversation in terms of, if we were to go forward with a motion to approve this resolution, to have an amendment just expressing the town's desire to be fully apprised of the outcome of the survey, including all of the traffic data complement prior to final decision on behalf of Nova Scotia Public Works. Does that seem appropriate?
Yes, Your Worship. If that amendment is in the motion that we get that final report on the pilot, then I have no issue with it, as long as we get it.
Okay, so if you want to make the motion for the amendment, we would just look for a seconder.
Yes, I would make that motion that we amend the resolution, that we get a pilot the pilot study on traffic movement on Reeve Street, say in September. And I guess that would end any issues. I guess in the motion that it has to be fixed if there's no problems.
Okay,
Yes.
anyone wanting to second that amendment?
I'll second it, Your Worship.
Okay, so we do have an amendment to this resolution that's currently before council on the floor. I would ask if there are any discussions or comments on the current amendment motion.
Yes, Your Worship, through you, I have a question on the whole thing, I guess, again.
Sure.
I'm a little confused here in terms of the traffic and the road diet. We're going to send out a survey and ask the citizens of Port Hawkesbury what they think. And during COVID time, we're saying that we think we would have had the same traffic as of after COVID time. So they're going to make decisions or recommendations or answers on that.
I guess to clarify and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor McIver, that his amendment is to ensure that that traffic data is presented to council in September so that we can see with that busy tourism shoulder season and how that translates in terms of traffic on Reeve Street, so that we can see what that those post-COVID numbers look like before a final decision will be made from Nova Scotia Public Works, so that council has the benefit of understanding that data as well as the results of the survey. Does that help?
That was my amendment, Your Worship.
Right,
Your
does that
Worship,
help?
just before we move on, just if you don't mind.
So I guess,
before we-
no, Your Worship, the
Something-
council is having a discussion here.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor
With all
McDougall.
due respect, this is council's decision here. I just want something clarified to make a vote on here. I'm going to be voting on two motions here in a second. I'd like clarification. So my question is, Your Worship, where are we at? Is the amendment to postpone the survey until we get the information on the traffic on Reeve Street, or are we sending out the questionnaires not knowing if the traffic is the same as it would have been during COVID or after COVID? Because if we're sending out the information during COVID, I don't think we got the right information to ask the citizens that question. But I don't understand, is that what Councillor McIver is saying, to wait? Or is he, I'm not quite sure.
Did you want to clarify that, Councillor McIver?
Well, it wasn't part of my amendment, but I do understand what Councillor McDougall is saying, that to do a survey, I guess, before we have the summer traffic and everything, I guess the residents, if they're not in the traffic, they can't answer any of the questions, I guess, truthfully. Like if they have to sit for 2 lights or 3 lights before they get through Granville Street or through Reeve Street, they would say it's fine right now. But maybe in September, if the survey went out, I believe this is what Councillor McDougall is alluding to, that they may have a different opinion at that time.
Okay, so I guess just to defer to Terry for a moment in terms of, and maybe perhaps to Blaine and Jason, in terms of the timeline that's been discussed by Nova Scotia Public Works, like did we have a tentative timeline in terms of when that survey potentially could be rolled out?
So, I mean, if this is rolled out, then there's a new agreement, and we start from with another agreement with this company. That can certainly be done, but I'm not assured that we would have the same type of agreement, and the cost will certainly change.
Right.
So, but if that's the wish of council, then we'll notify Nova Scotia Department of Public Works that we do not wish to participate in this cost sharing agreement at this point in time, and wish to delay the survey until all data is collected. Whether that's September or another time, it depends on the availability of the polling marketing company and a number of issues. So certainly, if that's the wish of council, then that's what we will portray. We will send to the province.
Okay, thank you for that, Terry. I guess I would defer again to Blaine and Jason. You both sat on this sit on this committee and have been active in those meetings. Just if you wanted to give some feedback.
Yeah, sure. Through your worship, I believe the hopes were to get this survey done in the spring, if not at the very latest, the early summer. In discussions in the meetings that we did have, Terry's not wrong when they say that our counts, especially last year, last summer, wouldn't be in that big of a difference in a normal year. And I think everybody here at this table can agree this summer is not going to be a normal traffic level either. This summer is going to be a much higher traffic level than we've probably ever had. We've had people, not able to leave your area basically for 2 years. Last year we opened up a bit and we've seen an influx of people here. But this summer with no restrictions anywhere, we're probably going to see double the traffic that we've ever seen in any summer. So I think either way, I think we're going to get truer numbers now than we will in August or September. I think we're going to get a truer read. Do I think this summer is going to be a little congested? Absolutely. When you go from 4 lanes to 2.5 or 3 lanes, absolutely it's going to be congested. It's going to slow it down, and I believe that was the purpose of the road diet, was to slow the traffic down. And when you slow things down, you move less vehicles per minute. But again, I do believe this year we're going to see a much, much higher volume of traffic than we've seen probably in the last 10 or 15 years. Obviously, I supported this in the meeting, and I still support it today to be able to move forward with this this spring or early summer.
Okay, over to you, Councillor McCrory.
Thank you, Your Worship. My opinion is I think we can go forward with getting this survey done, but I think we should indicate to the Public Works that we don't want the final report completed until, I think Councillor McIver said, potentially into September. And if in fact, the traffic, there are traffic woes that come up because of, as Jason, Deputy Mayor said, increased traffic in the summertime, and it does really cause bottlenecks. Well, then we're still in conversations with the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, and we would look to try to get those issues addressed. But I personally, I think we can go forward with the survey.
Okay. So I get any other discussion? We still have a current motion on the floor that's an amendment to the current resolution that states just what you have described, Councillor McCrory, that we would look for a presentation from Nova Scotia Public Works at some point in September to relay the traffic numbers in terms of vehicle movements along Reeve Street. Included would be the speed averages, as well as incidences of accidents and severity of accidents, and any issues with congestion in the whole ball of wax before any final decision is made with regard to this project. Councillor McDougall, did you want to add anything else before somebody's ready to call the question?
Well, Your Worship, I'll support the amendment, but I can't support the main motion because I don't think, what the Deputy Mayor said is reason enough that we should have the information. We should have all the information to let the citizens, at least in terms of the Reeve Street itself, on the diet part of it, the road diet. I don't think we can make anybody can make an educated, well, they can make an educated guess, I guess, but they can't the facts are not all there. I don't think, anyway, maybe I'm missing something here, but I think that it may increase this year. Yes, I think it will increase this year. But that's not answering our question.
All right, so I guess hearing that you're in agreement with the amendment, I would ask if council's prepared to call the question on the amendment to the resolution.
Question?
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, so we do have a motion that includes this resolution with the amendment that has been approved by council. So on our main motion that includes that amendment, what is the wishes of council? Is there any discussion still on the main motion? I know Councillor McDougall has expressed his wishes. Is there any other comments or questions? Or if you're prepared, you can call the question.
Question?
Okay, question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Nay.
Okay, one recorded nay for the record. Okay, so the resolution is approved. Terry, and if you could relay to Nova Scotia Public Works just the wishes of council in terms of the reporting for September of 2022. Yes, Terry, is there anything lingering or incomplete with regard to that item?
No, Your Worship. I'm not certain of the response from NSTIR collecting the information, but I'll pass on the wishes of council.
Absolutely.
Reflect it in the motion and get some clarification on the actual wording around that from you. So thank you.
That would be great. Perhaps with regard to ensuring that the wording is as intended, perhaps you can just loop Councillor McIver in to make sure that we describe that adequately.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So,
Please?
Your Worship, a question. Just as Terry has said, he's suggesting that can't count on Public Works agreeing to anything in particular. So now I'm concerned about that. And should we make the signing of this document contingent upon confirmation from Public Works that they will provide us with the final report in September, and given us an opportunity to see how things are going to unfold with traffic throughout the summer? I guess I just wanted to put that forward, if that's something that we can do.
Apologies, Councillor McCrory. I'm assuming that the amendment to the motion is attached to the resolution. So they're like that would be kind of the that would be kind of the conditions for which we would be participating in the survey. So that I believe would be a given already. If I understand correctly, Councillor McIver?
It's a given, Your Worship, it's a given on the part of how the amendment reads, but should that not be communicated to Public Works first and get that commitment from them, from Public Works, to do just what the amendment is asking? Prior to
the resolution, as I understand it, is contingent on that amendment. The Public Works would agree to the terms of the amendment that we presented based on that resolution. Okay. That's how I understand it.
Sure.
Does that kind of qualify what your question was?
Yes, it does, Your Worship. Okay. And so I would, I guess, ask that we'll
make sure the language reflects that piece. Mark and I will work on.
I would just ask that we would get a letter from Public Works just confirming that as well.
Okay, well, they will have to respond to the resolution as we present it to them. And I guess that, yeah. Go ahead, Councillor McIver.
I think what Terry I think what Councilor McCrory is saying is when we're not sure if transportation would accept this with the
Right.
amendment, is what Terry kind of said. We don't know.
No,
And
that is correct. So they would have to come back to us and say, we don't accept the resolution with this current amendment, or we accept this current amendment and we'll go forward with the survey. So there will be an additional step. Yeah, you're correct.
right, and maybe if council, if things didn't go, I guess, right, maybe if council agreed to allow Terry to ask transportation if they would do all of it, if they disagreed with the amendment, do it all in September. If they didn't want to do both.
Yeah, or perhaps accompanying the resolution and the discussion with Nova Scotia Public Works, we can probably kind of put some meat around the conversation that we had here this evening, just so they can kind of understand our concerns and they can understand the nature of that amendment to the resolution, so that, you know, so that they can understand that the council wants to be an active part of the decision-making process before a final decision is made with regard to the road diet. So if council feels that would be appropriate to kind of put some flesh around the discussion that we've had tonight, just to make sure there is context that follows that amendment, so that there is a very clear understanding on behalf of Public Works with regard to how we would like to see this go forward if council's in agreement.
Yes, I have no problem.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so future meetings, we have Committee of the Whole coming up March 15th, followed by a public meeting on April 5th. And at this time, I would ask if there are any public questions coming from the gallery this evening. And I thank any members of the gallery who have joined us this evening. Okay, so hearing no public questions, I would ask for a motion of adjournment.
Motion moved.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second it.
I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to give up all the fun we're having tonight.
To stay.
If you're ready, you can call the question.
Question.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. Have a great night, everyone, and I will stick around in case media have questions. Thank you.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.